want to turn now to the long-range picture of what's happening in Israel and what some say is a sign of the end times.
בראשנו. אני רוצה את מלך המשיח. אני רוצה את בית המקדש, זה אני רוצה.
For over 2,000 years, the appearance of a perfect red heifer has remained nothing more than a distant prophecy, an event that seemed impossible. Until now, in a quiet town in Shiloh, Israel, 5 unblemished red heifers have arrived. And for those who study biblical prophecy, this is no ordinary event. It's a sign, a message, a moment that could change everything. But what does it really mean? Moreover, this event carries not only religious significance, but has also sparked political controversy and tension. Hamas has stated that it sees the appearance of the red heifer and the plan to build the Third Temple as a direct threat to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites. This has contributed to the outbreak of conflict and fears of a major religious war. Is this a divine warning, signaling the approach of the end times? Or is it simply a rare occurrence with no greater significance? Today, we dive deep into one of the most mysterious rituals in the Bible, the purification of the red heifer, and why its return is sending shockwaves through religious and political communities alike. Hidden within the pages of the Bible, in the book of Numbers, lies an ancient law that has puzzled scholars for centuries. A law so unusual, so mysterious, that even King Solomon, the wisest of all, admitted he could not fully understand it. The law speaks of a red heifer, one without blemish, one that has never been yoked, one that must be sacrificed in a sacred ritual of purification. But why this specific animal? And why does it hold such significance? Finding a red heifer that meets all the biblical requirements is almost unheard of. It must be completely red, no black or white hairs. It must be free of any blemish. It must never have been used for work. But why such strict conditions? Why does every single hair, every moment of its life, matter? Some scholars believe the red heifer represents spiritual perfection, untainted by the world, never burdened by labor, a pure vessel meant for a sacred purpose. This idea is reinforced by Jewish texts like the Mishnah Para, which outline the extreme scrutiny these cows must undergo. The rarity of such an animal is also striking. Even among cattle bred specifically to increase the chances of a pure red heifer, almost all are disqualified due to minor imperfections. A single white or black hair, an old wound, or even being used to pull a cart would render it unsuitable. In modern times, the search for a red heifer has led to some unexpected places. In 1997, a red heifer named Melody was discovered in the United States, sparking excitement among prophecy watchers. However, she was later found to have white hairs, disqualifying her from the ritual. Now, with 5 red heifers appearing in Israel, the question remains, is this truly the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, or is it simply a statistical anomaly? Rabbi Chaim Richman, a leader of the Temple Institute, an organization dedicated to preparing for the rebuilding of the Third Temple, has called this event a monumental step toward biblical prophecy unfolding before our eyes. However, skeptics argue that this is merely a result of modern breeding techniques. The cows, they claim, were carefully selected and imported from Texas, raising the question of whether divine intervention played a role or whether it's simply human effort at work. This debate between faith and coincidence continues to fuel discussions among religious scholars, historians, and even genetic scientists who study cattle lineage. The arrival of these 5 red heifers in Israel is being hailed as a miracle by many. But why now? Timing is everything in prophecy. In Jewish eschatology, the arrival of the red heifer is not just about purification, it is about preparing for the Third Temple. an event that is believed to usher in the Messianic age. The significance of this event grows when we consider how long it has been since a red heifer was last used. According to Jewish tradition, only 9 red heifers have ever been sacrificed in history, the last one during the Second Temple period over 2,000 years ago. Rabbi Moses Maimonides, a revered medieval Jewish philosopher, stated that the 10th red heifer will be prepared by the Messiah himself. Could these 5 cows be a sign that the long-awaited 10th is near? Some point to modern-day events aligning with biblical prophecy. The establishment of Israel in 1948, the recapture of Jerusalem in 1967, and now, potential preparations for the Third Temple are seen by many believers as pieces of a divine puzzle falling into place. Others, however, warn against reading too much into the discovery. Religious historian Dr. James Tabor notes that many past movements believed they were witnessing the fulfillment of prophecy, only to see their expectations fade. He points out that similar excitement surrounded previous red heifer discoveries, but none led to immediate prophetic fulfillment. Meanwhile, the political implications of this event cannot be ignored. The Temple Mount, the site where the Third Temple is prophesied to be built, is also home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites. Hamas and other Islamic organizations have already condemned the red heifer's arrival, seeing it as a provocation, one that suggests an attempt to reclaim the Temple Mount and disrupt the current status quo. This raises an urgent question. If religious leaders in Israel decide to move forward with the ritual, could this ignite a broader conflict? As tensions rise and debates intensify, the world watches. Is this truly the beginning of a prophetic era? Or will this moment, like those before it, fade into history? The origin and significance of the Third Temple. To understand the significance of the Third Temple, we must first look back at history, at the 2 great temples that stood before it. The first temple, built by King Solomon in the 10th century BCE, was the heart of Jewish worship. It housed the Ark of the Covenant and was seen as the very dwelling place of God's presence on earth. For nearly 400 years, it stood as the center of Jewish religious and political life, until 586 BCE, when the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar destroyed it, forcing the Israelites into exile. But the story didn't end there. 70 years later, a second temple was built. The Second Temple, constructed under Persian rule and later expanded by King Herod, stood for nearly 600 years. It was where Jesus himself walked, taught, and prophesied about its eventual destruction. That prophecy came true in 70 CE, when the Romans burned it to the ground, crushing the Jewish revolt and scattering the people across the world. Since then, for over 1,900 years, the Jewish people have lived without a temple, without sacrifices, without the Holy of Holies. Yet, the hope of rebuilding never faded. Every year, during prayers and holidays, one phrase is repeated: "Next year in Jerusalem." For believers, the construction of the Third Temple isn't just about reclaiming history. It's about fulfilling destiny. For centuries, Jewish and Christian scholars have debated the role of the Third Temple in prophecy. In the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel 40-48, the prophet describes a future temple with intricate details, one unlike any that has existed before. Many believe this to be the blueprint for the Third Temple. The prophet Daniel, Daniel 9:27, speaks of a coming covenant, a time of great tribulation, and a moment when sacrifices will be halted again. Some interpret this as a prophecy that the Third Temple will be built, only to be desecrated. The prophet Zechariah, Zechariah 6:12-13, also foretells a future temple, saying, "He shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory." Many connect this with the coming of the Messiah. For those who believe in biblical prophecy, the Third Temple isn't just a religious structure, it's a turning point in human history. Some say it will usher in a new spiritual era, a time of divine peace. Others warn that it could be a sign of apocalyptic events, a shift that will change the world forever. Could this be why the sudden appearance of the red heifers is causing so much urgency? Look around. Wars, natural disasters, political chaos, a growing divide between nations. For centuries, people have looked at world events and wondered, are we seeing the signs of the end times? In Matthew 24, Jesus warned of a time when there would be wars and rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, and widespread deception. He spoke of a world where believers would be persecuted, where false prophets would rise, and where the love of many would grow cold. Could this describe the world we live in today? Wars are intensifying in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and beyond. Earthquakes and extreme weather events have increased in frequency and severity. Political systems are unraveling, and global institutions struggle to maintain order. Religious persecution is on the rise, with believers facing oppression in many parts of the world. While some argue that these events are simply part of history's natural cycle, others believe we are witnessing something far greater, a divine timeline playing out before our eyes. And at the center of it all, the Third Temple, a structure many believe will either bring peace or usher in the final conflict. If the Third Temple is built, what happens next? According to some interpretations of prophecy, its construction will not mark the arrival of lasting peace. Instead, it will be a key event in the rise of deception. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, the Apostle Paul warns of a man of lawlessness who will enter the temple and declare himself as God. Many Christians interpret this as a prophecy about the Antichrist, an individual who will establish a false peace, only to betray the world. The book of Revelation, Revelation 13:14-15, also describes a future leader who will demand worship and set up an image in the temple, deceiving many. Could this mean that the Third Temple will become a political and spiritual battleground? Some say it will be the place where God's promises are fulfilled. Others fear it could be the greatest deception in human history. Yet, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem continues its preparations. Blueprints are ready. Priestly garments have been woven. Sacred vessels have been recreated. All that remains is a political breakthrough, a moment when construction can finally begin. Is that moment coming soon? Not everyone agrees on how, or if, the Third Temple should be built. Some rabbis believe that humans must take action and rebuild the temple as soon as possible. Organizations like the Temple Institute argue that preparation is not only permitted, but necessary for prophecy to be fulfilled. Others take a more cautious approach. Rabbi Avigdor Nabenzal, a leading scholar, has warned that attempting to rebuild the temple prematurely could cause unnecessary conflict and even divine judgment. Some Jewish traditions suggest that the temple will not be built by human hands at all, but will instead descend from heaven when the Messiah comes. Meanwhile, Christian scholars also debate its significance. Some believe it is essential for the fulfillment of prophecy and a sign that Jesus' return is near. Others argue that the church itself is the new temple and that focusing on a physical building is a misunderstanding of prophecy. Still, others see the Third Temple as a potential trap, a deceptive move that will mislead many before the final judgment. These debates raise fundamental questions. Should humans take action and build the temple now? Or should they wait for divine intervention? And if construction does begin, what happens next? For many Christians, the idea of the Third Temple is deeply tied to biblical prophecy. especially to the events that must unfold before the second coming of Jesus Christ. According to Daniel 9:27 and 2 Thessalonians 2:4, the Antichrist is expected to enter the temple, proclaim himself as God, and deceive many. This moment, often referred to as the abomination of desolation, is seen as a key marker of the Great Tribulation, a period of immense suffering described in the book of Revelation. Some Christian scholars view the rebuilding of the Third Temple as a necessary step before Jesus' return, a sign that we are moving toward the fulfillment of God's divine plan. Others, however, caution against overinterpreting current events. They argue that past generations have also seen wars, plagues, and political turmoil, yet the end did not come. Could this be another cycle of history, or is something different happening this time? One thing is clear: the conversation is growing. More pastors, theologians, and believers are watching these developments closely, wondering if they are seeing prophecy unfold before their very eyes. If these events are truly leading toward biblical prophecy, how should believers respond? Revelation 13 warns of deception. Jesus himself said in Matthew 24:4-5, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will deceive many." This is a powerful reminder that believers are called to watch, discern, and remain steadfast in their faith. Rather than focusing on fear, the Bible calls Christians to be spiritually prepared, to stand firm in truth, avoid deception, and resist the temptation to place their hope in earthly signs instead of in Christ himself. Throughout history, many people have tried to predict the exact moment of Jesus' return, but Jesus made it clear: no one knows the day or the hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Matthew 24:36. Instead of obsessing over dates and signs, believers are called to be ready at all times, living in faith, pursuing righteousness, and sharing the gospel with the world. Whether or not the Third Temple is built in our lifetime, this moment serves as a wake-up call, a reminder that the world is changing rapidly, that biblical prophecy continues to shape history, and that faith is more important than ever. In times of uncertainty, the Bible calls believers not to live in fear, but in faith. Jesus reassured his followers in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." So, instead of fear, let this be a time of spiritual renewal, a time to draw closer to God, a time to reflect on what truly matters. Because whether the end is near or far, the call to live a holy and faithful life remains the same. 5. Conclusion. What does it all mean? Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The appearance of 5 red heifers, an event that hasn't happened in over 2,000 years, has sparked excitement and controversy. The purification ritual they enable is essential for the rebuilding of the Third Temple, a structure deeply tied to biblical prophecy. The Third Temple itself, if constructed, could mark the beginning of profound prophetic events, possibly leading to the Second Coming or the Great Tribulation. Signs of the end times, wars, disasters, and political unrest are aligning with what Jesus described in Matthew 24 and other biblical prophecies. Are these just coincidences, or is something much greater unfolding? This is a conversation that stretches across faiths, traditions, and generations. Do you believe we are witnessing the fulfillment of biblical prophecy? Are these red heifers and the plans for the Third Temple truly signs of the end times? Or are we simply repeating history, reading too much into world events? The discussion is open, and we want to hear from you. If this topic interests you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into biblical mysteries, prophecy, and world events. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Are we living in the end times? Or is history just repeating itself? Let's explore the truth together. Stay alert. Stay faithful. Stay ready.